grit and consistency. We do one-on-ones with our dancers each year because a lot of times our dancers don't work together, And so what I have found with the dancers, with the artists who are booking most, is they are auditioning the most. So, there's some people who, and so they get cut a lot. The girl who is getting the national commercial or the national tour, she got cut from 10. So just really knowing their conversion rate and continually keeping up their practice. So the people who I've found, have kind of like exciting gigs and, are booking the Met Gala with Katy Perry, they are constantly going to class, constantly improving themselves. It's not as if, I got the job, so I can just lean back. They're always leaning forward, always improving, and always adding a specialty. So, how do I differentiate myself? Okay, so I learned that. What else can I learn? Those are the people that I find be successful and continuous. Because there have been people in my past who are exceptional performers and they didn't make it. And there's people who weren't exceptional performers, but are, with amazing companies. And the only difference was that they kept going.
Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, avid book reader, and developing salsa dancer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who've gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Welcome to episode 40 of the Amani Experience Podcast. For this show, we have Colette Brandenburg with us from LA Follies. Had a great discussion with Colette. Some of the things that really stood out to me was just we had an intelligent discussion about all things creative and all things art related. It was great. She's incredibly knowledgeable about kind of Broadway and dance and just everything. So it was like I was going to class. I loved it. Next, when she shared about what her process is for the artist way, that was very revealing to me, something that I want to adopt in the future. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Colette. That was very informative. And then when she talked about one new habit she added, and she shared how she reads first thing in the morning, that was something that I can easily add to my kind of daily routine. So I'm going to do that. So thank you for sharing that as well. If you want to reach me, you can leave a comment in iTunes, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can email me at podcast@amaniexperience.com. I appreciate any emails you send me. We're working on a special episode for number 50, so stay tuned for an announcement on that. And let's get to the show. Hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for listening. Welcome back to the show. I'm going to read our guest bio, and we'll get right to our interview. Our guest today is the co-founder and artistic director of the LA Follies. After receiving her undergraduate degree in international affairs and French from Lewis and Clark College, she was accepted to the Alvin Ailey School's Dance Conservatory program in New York City. She began freelance choreographing after completing conservatory and had the opportunity to work in a variety of settings ranging from traditional music formats to site-specific avant-garde events on rooftops in London. She began teaching and creating contemporary work as an artist in residence in Los Angeles and later pursued her MFA in London. While in London, she founded a contemporary dance company, The Federation, which performed at the Glastonbury Festival, The Place, Resolutions, and a variety of other events. Eventually, she moved back to LA and after a job in pyrotechnics at Universal Studios, began a company with her co-founder, Shannon Zimmerman, the LA Follies. I want to introduce Colette Brandenburg to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. We're excited to have you. And let's talk.
Yes, I'm excited.
Well, good. So one thing is that, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan, Commerce Township, outside of Detroit, on dirt roads.
Very good. And where are we right now?
We are in Santa Monica on Broadway at the lovely WeWork building where our office is.
Yes. So we're in WeWork. We're chatting. Lewis and Clark. Where is that university?
Portland, Oregon.
Portland. Okay,
Yeah.
so you went from Detroit to Portland, and then after that you went to Alvin Ailey, New York City.
Yeah. Between that, I lived in France for a little while.
Oh, parlez-vous français?
Ouais, un peu.
All right, all right. And then Alvin Ailey, then you went back to London, or?
No, I came to LA first.
Okay.
And then I was working here for a while, and a woman named Jordy Wright, who's amazing, she encouraged me to go to grad school.
Okay.
And I went to grad school in London.
Nice. Roehampton University, correct?
Roehampton, mhm.
All right. Got your master's in fine.
I got my MFA in choreography.
Nice. Good job. Now, I understand that you grew up in a classical ballet company when you were younger.
I did. I started off in Michigan Ballet Theater, and then eventually my director, she left the company and she started a new company called Midwest Dance Theater, which I was a part of.
Right. So you were a founding member of the Midwest Dance.
Yeah,
Company.
it was a really small company, and I'm still friends with the girls I dance with, Melanie, Serena, Dina. Yeah,
Colette says hi.
I do. I say hi.
And you were a cymbal player in your high school marching band?
How did I tell you that?
No, you didn't.
Oh, it was horrible. Yes, Mr. Rogers was my final marching band instructor, but I played the oboe growing up.
Cool.
No, I was not good.
Would win.
Yeah, it's a great instrument when someone else plays it. But they don't have oboe in marching band, so I played cymbals, which I was not good at, and then I did color guard.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have a very deep love for Drum Corps International. I don't know if you've ever seen a marching band competition, but there's exceptional musicianship in marching band. And my niece is in marching band. She plays trombone.
All right, good. Well, I went to Howard University, so you know
you
that
did?
historically Black College and University, you know, our marching band's almost better than the football game
Oh my
sometimes.
God.
So
Same, University of Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, did you guys have a step team?
yeah, we had everything. Yeah, like you've seen the movie Drumline, right? That was,
Yes.
So
Did you play?
I played saxophone, but not in the marching band.
Oh.
So I was not skilled enough, or my skills were differently used for jazz band instead of marching band. So,
You had skills. That was where we separate. 'Cause
but I appreciate what the drumline can do. You're also a guest lecturer, professor at Cal State LA.
Yeah, I haven't taught there in a minute, but when I came back from grad school, I was a guest artist there, and then I taught jazz, and I taught modern, and I worked on their musical hair. It's great.
Yeah.
I think Meredith Greenberg is in charge of the program, and she is a lovely person, and the students there are wonderful.
Great,
Yeah.
great, nice. And you know, we have our fun facts here, and I found an interesting fun fact about you is that you're trained in belly dancing.
Oh my God, how did you find this? Yes, when it's so funny because I went to, in undergrad, I studied international affairs, and one of my professors was Cyrus Partovi, who specialized in Middle East politics, specifically Iran. And I did my thesis on women's involvement in the revolution in Iran, and then I went and danced, and my first job in New York was about a Persian poet, this woman Farouk Farrokhzad, and it was half in Farsi and half in English. So my first real choreography job had to do with Iranian, culture. And then I came to LA and I auditioned for this company. It was a performance, and it was run by Mohammed Hordadian. Mohammed is like the Fred Astaire of Iran, and he kind of codified a lot of dances throughout Iran, and kind of brought them to a performative audience, and he's a big deal there. And so I knew nothing about Iranian dancing or belly dancing or anything, but we learned, and then I performed it like the Dorothy Chandler, and I had no idea that was going to be part of it. But I love Persian music, I love Arabic music, I love belly dancing, I love props.
Good.
I love it all.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Great fun facts.
Yeah, it's weird how Iranians keep coming into my life.
Yeah. Must be a sign.
Yeah, it's a past life, I guess.
Out of all the cities you've lived in, which one is your favorite?
Well, I have to say LA, right?
Tell us why. You can say that, or you don't have to say that.
Each city has their merit. I live in Venice Beach, which is eclectic, to say the least. I do love being near water. I miss London and New York a lot because I love big architecture and big buildings, and I love to be able to walk everywhere, which is why Venice is nice. But and Portland's beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my hometown, I can't pick one.
Okay, that's fine. You've lived in a bunch of places, though, so respect. I've also lived in a bunch of places across the U.S. I haven't gone international yet. But
Yeah, where have you lived?
Me, myself, D.C., grew up in D.C.,
Oh, wow.
Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Miami, L.A.
All big cities.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Yeah, I love Chicago.
So
Now, it's too
beautiful.
cold for me there now, but when I was there, the people were nice, embracing, so I love Chicago, and then LA and Miami are like tied for second.
Yeah.
I put DC in a different category because that's where I grew up, and so that just
Yeah.
has special meaning, but that would be my top 3 with an asterisk.
Oh, nice. I like it.
If we were going to summarize Colette in 30 seconds or less, how would you summarize yourself?
I would say I'm a choreographer and creative director with a soft spot for costuming, couture, old movie musicals, and most currently RuPaul.
So, okay, all right.
I love RuPaul.
All right. Speaking of old school musicals, what does the play The Nutcracker mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love the Nutcracker. I grew up, so the company I grew up in, Michigan Ballet Theater, we would do, it was just a small regional company, but we would do the full show with an orchestra. I remember having a costume made for me by Miss Judy. And, you know, my family is, they are all, not all of them, but most of them are hunters. So Nutcracker season and hunting season cross paths.
Okay.
So I would have to miss going up north with my family for Nutcracker rehearsals, and I just like the opening, like the overture of Nutcracker. It has so many fond memories, and just dancing with, you know when you're an ensemble or a musician or a dancer, or you're in a group and you have that like you're all, you know the material, you know while you're moving together, you've done thousands of hours in the studio, and you're just like, oh, sorry, it comes on, the music comes on, and you're like, you know, and so I love the Nutcracker. And now I watch it repeatedly. I love Baryshnikov's Nutcracker. I'm not a fan of Balanchine's.
Fair enough. We have our likes and dislikes.
Yes, but there's a great book called Raising the Bar about this woman. It's nonfiction about a woman doing the Nutcracker in like her 50s. Yeah, I love the Nutcracker.
And what are some of your other favorite kind of old school musicals?
Oh, musicals. I just went to, Hello, Dolly, of course, the waiter scene. There's scenes in certain musicals.
All right.
Funny Girl, I didn't understand why Barbra Streisand, why so many people loved her. And then I saw Funny Girl. Oh my God. She's a genius. The costuming, exceptional. And they have a whole Follies. You know, it's like Ziegfeld and the costuming and the stairs and it's all ridiculous, and I just love it. And I just went to a twofer at Lemley, and I saw the Easter Parade and Bandwagon. Anything with Judy Garland. Just
Good.
love it.
All right. The look of nostalgia on your face is just perfect. Yeah. Awesome. You're just in bliss.
Yes. Especially those costumes. Oh, right. And the dancing. Shapoopy. Have you ever seen Shapoopy?
No, I haven't. Not yet.
Oh my gosh. Shapoopy's so good.
Cool. Well, when you were at Alvin Ailey, talk to us about that experience. What did you learn from that experience? Because that's like a revered school of dance, and so it's not easy to get into. What did you learn from there, and how was your experience there?
It's funny. I was first introduced, and this is going to date me. I was first introduced to Alvin Ailey through the Phil Donahue show. Do you remember that show?
Yes, I'm probably a little older than you, so I remember. Yes.
So they perform. I don't know why they performed that. I just remember seeing them perform. Growing up in ballet, I didn't really know about modern companies. You know, I knew that you could either be a ballet dancer or musical theater. I couldn't sing, and I didn't have a body of a ballet dancer. So I was like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna dance. I'm gonna be a lawyer, right? So I'm gonna be an international lawyer or whatever. And one summer, when I lived in France, I lived in Nancy, like over near Belgium and Luxembourg, and I saw that Ailey was performing in Brussels, and I had recognized him at the company. We wanted to go on like a little weekend trip, some friends and I who also were dance fans, and we went to see Ailey, and I was just blown away. And and because it was such a technical company, and they're very athletic, there's like this prowess, and so I was like, oh wow. And so then they were on my radar, because this is all kind of like it's not pre-internet, but you're not really on there's no Facebook or anything like that. And then I really wanted an excuse to live in New York. So I saw that they had a summer program, and I applied and I got in, and then I went to their summer program. And when I was in undergrad, I loved all my classes, but I had a difficult time focusing. We had to get the New York Times, but I was like, skip to the art section. Like I would do the work, and I had to keep my scholarship to keep going to school. So okay. I tried to do well, but dance kept kind of like pulling, and but I didn't know where my place would be. So then when I went to Ailey, because you go 5 days a week, you're doing like 14 to 20 classes, and I had been introduced to contemporary dance, which didn't really resonate with me because I really liked structure, and I didn't realize that there was structure within modern dance. And so when you have live musicians and you have these incredible teachers and you're surrounded by exceptional dancers, and the first company, so there's Ailey, the first company, and then there's their apprentice company, and then the students. The first company rehearses there, so you see them, and they're like God. So my first summer you're there, you watch the older classes, you watch, Horton 4, and these people are doing. I always think rehearsals more exciting, and a lot of times in performance. I mean, the things they can do with their bodies are insane. And I fell in love with Graham. I was like, oh my God, I love Graham. And I had I did have a little bit of a nutty teacher, but I loved it. And so I was like, I'm quitting school. I'm going to quit school. I'm going to stay here. Like, it was the first time that I was fully present. So I would get into class and I wouldn't look at the clock. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I wasn't thinking about anything else. So I knew that was a different focus than I had before. And so I was like, Mom, I'm just going to stay. I'm going to audition for their certificate program. I'm just going to stay. And my mother was like, please do not do that. She's like, you have 1 year left. Just finish school and then you can go back. But for, when you're 20 and you're dancing, you're like, no, I have to do it now. But I didn't. I went back to school. I finished school. And then I went back to Ailey.
Good.
And then when I was there, it's incredibly intense. The summer program is a lot different than the full year program. And so I had 2 full-time jobs and I was paying for Ailey up front. So it was a lot. It's definitely difficult to be in a conservatory and work full-time. But you train with the best dancers in the country, and there's a certain way that they train, and I haven't, the only trouble with going to a place like Ailey, it's like having filet mignon every day for dinner, because then anything less than that, you're just like, well, this isn't Ailey, but it was very hard. It was very inspiring, and I met some of the most incredible people and dancers and your idols, and yeah, it was definitely a highlight.
Good.
Yeah. A good foundation.
I can tell. I might not eat filet mignon every day, but if I could eat crab cakes every day, I understand your analogy. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Well done. So on the show, we love to focus on, people who have worked kind of in corporate America, the corporate life, then have done their own creative thing, which you definitely have done. Mm-hmm. What do you think is important for creative professionals such as yourself, myself? What's important for us to succeed in today's business environment?
I think there's a few different things that to succeed. I think because before I used to teach, and I worked at a bar, I did catering, I did everything. There was a big transition when I decided to make a creative life my professional life, and I think anyone who grows up in a creative or has like a passion for a creative field, a lot of times you focus on the creation process of whatever that is. If it's music, dance, fine art, photography, and so you always take classes on whatever that medium is. You don't necessarily take classes on the business aspect of it, which is very different, and to understand that is, when I'm working on my business, I am working on my art. Sometimes it's hard to remind myself, but when I am meeting with my CPA, this is in order for me to be able to produce a show, to create. And so I think that knowing my numbers is really important. And so having a baseline and accountability. So there's stuff that when I first started out in the field, I was very resistant towards, like, it's just about the piece. It's like, it doesn't matter if you make a great piece if no one shows up or you can't pay your dancers, So getting to know those numbers and learning how to run a business is very important.
Yeah. Now, you spoke about getting to pay your dancers and being able to pay your dancers. Throughout your career, you've been an advocate for dancers finding well-paid jobs.
Yeah.
How did that come to be sort of like a passion for you within your company?
There was one key point. I read an article once about the modeling industry, and how it used to be in the early 1900s, and how it was very similar to dance. Like, you should just be happy to model, and here's a little stipend. And then I believe it was a woman who started Ford Agency. She realized that it's essentially a commodity. You're providing a service, right? You are doing this thing in order to service a product, and so she really heavily monetized it. And for me, something that I come up against a lot with creating work is that, when you don't pay your dancers, it's a very precarious agreement. I hope that you'll come to rehearsal and that, that it's not concrete. When you're paying somebody, the exchange is very straightforward. This is what you're getting. This is what I need you to do. And so it makes it much easier to just kind of hold someone accountable. You can attract better talent when you pay them. Good people deserve to be paid. They expect to be paid, and it's much easier in the long run to work with those types of people than someone who kind of does it. And also, I just believe that dancers are often, because it's a young group of people, dancers tend to be on the younger side.
Yes.
That they are keen to do anything, and which is great, and they need to build their resume, but then they get kind of discarded. And so I really strongly believe that in order for a dancer to be at their best, they need to have income so that they don't have to have 25 jobs, come to you tired, unable to pay their rent. If they get into a car accident, can they pay for their car? And there's all those things. And usually by the time that a dancer is 24, they've probably been taking class and performing for 20 years. That deserves a paycheck,
Yes, it does.
And I think that sometimes a lot of people who create, particularly when you're in a performative field, a lot of people have the idea that, they're happy to perform, so I can, get by with whatever. But that, to me, if I want to create work, a cost of creating work is a cost to have a dancer. Just like a painter has to pay for paint. So if I want a dancer, I have to figure out how to pay them. It's important.
Yeah, agree 100%. Thanks for sharing that. When you were getting your master's in London, you also started a company called the Federation, correct?
Yeah.
So
You did your homework.
Thank you. What were some lessons learned when you started that company?
I started that company because I was very frustrated with my grad school process. I went to grad school. I got an MFA because I felt that I lacked a lot of knowledge around working with lighting designers, set designers, composers, that type of thing. And I also wanted to get more into physical theater. Yeah. And I knew if you had your MFA, you're a PhD equivalent for dance, so you can teach. And I was like, okay, all the MFA programs I heard about were very intense. And I'd always focused a lot, I'd had a lot of dance training, but I hadn't had a lot of choreographic training, even though I'd been choreographing for quite a while. So I really just wanted to spend a focused time doing that. The program, which the teachers are lovely, they're great, it was just not as intense as I expected it to be. And so my first year was a bit frustrating. And I, unfortunately, I would call myself a difficult student because I vocalized my frustration. And so the second year, I went to this amazing residency. It was run by Michael Keegan-Dolan in the countryside in Ireland. And he had some great practices. And I was like, because it was a 2-year program, I was like, I am just going to grab as much out of London as I possibly can. And so by having a company, I had a platform, and I just submitted for everything. I'm like, if I'm going to be here, like, I'm going to be here. And I have assets. I have rehearsal space. I have dancers. I'm in a great city. So instead of just kind of accepting what my program has to offer, which is fine, can I swear?
Yes.
I'm gonna fucking like own the fact that I'm here, and I'm gonna, because it was not looked upon highly that I did resolutions. Your second year, you do a full length production, and they're like, you know, it's really stressful. And I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna do work. Glastonbury's huge. I'm like, I'm gonna go balls out. So excuse the language, but anyways, I just I felt that if I'm, you know, I have time right now, so let me use it to the best of my ability. And I really wanted a contemporary platform, and I still do work with that company. It's not as often as I'd like, but I'm doing a project later this year.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Then you started LA Follies in 2012, back here in LA.
Hello.
If you were going to look back and think, when was the turning point in your career? Like, when did you sit up and like, okay, this is working, this is the real deal, like there's no turning back?
With the LA Follies?
Yes.
I had 2 turning points.
Okay.
I had one prior, because I was teaching quite a bit, and I'm not a great employee. Because I tend to say, you know, I think we should work on this. I think we should change that, you know. And now that I'm an employer, I'm like, that employee is annoying. But I love feedback from my dancers. So my boyfriend is an entrepreneur, and he's in tech, and he had said to me once, he said, why do you always expect someone else to give you a paycheck? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're in a situation where you're dependent on someone else to put you on payroll. Like, why do you do that? And I was kind of like, you don't understand, it's the arts. And he's like, no, you don't understand. And of course, he's right. He's much more of a businessman than I am. So that kind of made me think like, you know, I like Seth Godin says, like, choose yourself, like, stop looking for the gatekeeper, like, be your own, right? So that was a bit of a turning point. Then another one was I don't know if there was a specific one, but it was just that it was beginning to be so much that I obviously I wasn't actively pursuing getting like teaching jobs or choreographing jobs. And I also wasn't necessarily getting asked back. Like I said, I'm not a great employee. And so, but there was a point when I was at Waterworld, because I did pyro at Waterworld, and I was getting more and more opportunities. And so I just had to say, like, I can't do this anymore. Which was, you know, it's always scary doing that jump, but you gotta do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it work.
All right. And why do you love being a choreographer?
Right now, why do I love that?
You're funny. Yes.
I do really love creating with my dancers. It's, you know, it's very much a collaborative process. There's just something, I get like visions, you know, like I see things and I need to create them. But what I love about being a choreographer, it's when I'm fully present. You know, it's the only, I kind of have like a lot of voices going on and a lot of things. And, but when I'm in a theater or in the studio, everything else, like, it's like, it gets quiet and I'm focused and I'm there. And so I feel like it's, I feel kind of like it's like prayer, you know, when you're just like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Don't want to be anywhere else.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then where do you draw inspiration for like new routines and kind of how do you...
Tell me, where do you get your inspiration?
Inspiration and stay fresh and stay relevant. Like how do you...
That's a hard one.
Okay.
I've been trying to push myself to go see other shows. I just saw Crystal Pite's work, Betroffenheit at the Broad, which was exceptional. I did last year I had a moment. I felt like the well was empty. I do my Artist Way date as often as possible.
Good.
And I have an Artist Way buddy, Katie Lewars.
Good.
And so we reminded ourselves to like fill the well, but last year the well was very dry. And so I went back to Ireland and I saw Michael's new work, his Swan Lake. And it just reminded me of the transformative power of theater, of, just no, you don't have any rules when you're in the creative field. Like anything goes. Not everything sells, but anything goes. And then recently I was a little like, oh man, I gotta, taxes. And then I went to see the Easter parade on the movie screen. I was like, oh my God, rhinestones, RuPaul wigs. I try and grab it from as many people and places as possible, but it is a struggle sometimes, especially when you're in the business of making work, because financially it's always good to just, recycle your work. But artistically, that's not always exciting.
Right.
So it's not easy.
And for the listeners who aren't familiar with the artist's way, explain to them what that process involves.
Ooh, the artist's way. This is what I would recommend doing it. I was always very skeptical of the artist's way. Have you done it?
Yeah, I know about it. I have not done it yet.
Okay. So I was like, what is that? But people who I thought were really smart because they went to Harvard had done it. So I was like, well, if it's good enough for Harvard, I guess I can do it. And so I was working at this bar in LA, and my friend Katie, we were talking about it, and she's like, oh, I've done the artist's way. Let's do it together. So I'm thinking, oh, we're going to read the book. So that was not the process that we did. I highly recommend this process. We would meet every week, once a week, at a coffee shop. We would read the chapter aloud to one another, which felt very awkward. And then at the end of each chapter, there's tasks to do. And it talks a lot about God, which it can put people off because it's not necessarily, it doesn't mean it's about religion. You can substitute creative force, energy. So that can be a turnoff, but if you get through it, you're like, okay. And it's not an immediate transformation. It's just kind of like a tectonic shift where you don't necessarily know what's happening. You're not like, ding, lights on. It's just a slow shift. And now Katie has, at that time we were both working at the bar, now Katie has a feature film company, I have a dance company, and you get an accountability partner, but it's just, it helps you uncover a lot of what is happening. Why are you stuck?
Yes. Yes.
And it can be very far along in a creative career. It can be very early on in a creative career. And it's not always completely intuitive why it works. I have no idea why it works. But I just recently did it again with a different person.
Okay.
And again, tectonic shift. I don't know.
Good word, tectonic. I like it. Tell us, keep going.
Yeah. And so and then usually the person I do it with, I develop a really close friendship with, because you have to be a bit vulnerable, and yeah, it's great. I highly recommend it. And it's 12 chapters, Yeah. It's like a $20 book. It's worth it.
All right. We'll put all that information in the show notes.
Yes.
Now, on the flip side, what is something that scares you?
Heights.
Besides heights.
Well, I just had to drive to. We might be doing a client in Arrowhead, Lake Arrowhead, and I had to drive along.
Oh, yeah.
Have you driven along?
One time, but yes.
Oh my God.
You're here. You survived.
I think dying in obscurity scares me.
Okay.
Just kind of always being an artist who lives on the periphery, and just kind of chugs along and plateaus, like how do you keep moving forward? How do I grow as an artist? How do I grow as a business? How do I not become irrelevant? How do I become relevant?
Yes.
I think that's all those fears.
With where your company is right now, though, you're kind of pretty relevant, especially in like the event space, doing like the high profile events. So, you're kind of already along the path there. What else is important to you so that you can be like, I've arrived?
I really hope that we can develop a full-length show and have more residencies. As far as business goes, I would love to have more recurring clients. We have recurring clients, but I would love to have, a show at Disneyland.
Hint, hint.
Put that out there.
Put that out there in the universe.
But consistency, you know what it's like. I think sometimes our Instagram makes it look very exciting. And then you're like, but do you know how many days I spent at the office on my laptop, emailing? To me, success would be if we're in the theater more. Like, I'd like to be in the theater 4 days of the week and in the office 1 day of the week.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
That's good. We can work on that.
Yeah.
Put it out there. We're going to work on that. Now, your industry, our industry, specifically like the dance industry here in LA and New York, is very crowded.
Very.
How do you rise above all the noise and distinguish yourself from the competition?
You go on the Amani Experience podcast.
Boom! I didn't even have to pay you to say that. Besides that.
That's number one. Number two, I would encourage other artists to not look at previous artistic practices as business models. So, for instance, probably because my boyfriend's in tech, the word in dance and a lot of other artistic areas is like, there's no money, it's ephemeral, like it's not a commodity. And so, but you know what else is ephemeral and right around the street? Snapchat. So they seem to make it work. So we are essentially a hybrid of three different things: an entertainment company, a dance company, and a tech company. So I look towards tech. So I would read the Lean Startup. I think tech conferences tend to be way better than, performance conferences, because they talk about business models, revenue building, revenue streams. And so we differentiate ourselves by not being a 501c3, not looking at membership and yes, that's one path. We don't completely ignore it, but to try and be innovative, not just in our art, but in our business.
Good. And when you've attended a tech conference, what is something you've taken away that you've used in your business?
Oh my goodness, so much. I went to South by Southwest a few years ago, and there was definitely a lot of talk a long time ago about failure, and that was really helpful to, who was it? Was Foursquare? It was really interesting to see how these companies grow really fast and then bomb and then grow and then bomb.
Yes.
And I know failure is a really hot topic right now, so it's probably boring to hear about it from me because I'm not a tech genius, but it was really interesting, and it was surprising how much artistically they crossed over. I went to a Flash conference in Amsterdam, and it was incredibly surprising how similar it was to a talk I had gone to at the National Theater in London. We think we're so different, but a lot of people, particularly in tech, are graphic designers, they're artists, they have the same practice processes as we do. So that's always really interesting.
The next conference you go to, send me a note. I want to go with you because I agree.
Yes.
I'm ready to go. Let's go. Road trip.
Yes.
Road trip. Now, you mentioned failure. That takes us to our next question. How has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Yes. This one's a good one. So one of our first shows was, it was at this venue, and we were going to be providing dancers doing jingle bells, right? So with live music, which is your area of expertise.
This is my area of expertise, yes.
And so they wanted kind of like a Rockette style kick line, classic. The stage was a bit small, and there was carpet, but we'll make it do. And then the singer, rehearsal goes great rehearsal. Singer during the show forgot the words to Jingle Bells. Skipped some choruses, and the music director followed the singer. Doesn't make the dancers look great when they don't, because it's wait, what? And it was a kick line, contemporary dance, you just fall on the floor, and it's that's part of it. A kick line, not so much. So then does it again. Mm-hmm. And this is this is our first big show, and then we're going to be doing a show over at the Annenberg, a bigger theater. So my dancers were like, can we please just step touch? I was like, no, we are a technical company. That is that's one of our core values. You guys are amazing dancers. We're not going to step touch. But how do we prepare for this? So I Bob Bowman'd it. Bob Bowman is Michael Phelps' coach. So he would purposefully sabotage Michael Phelps, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, so we rehearsed, and I would change the music. I play Biggie, I play Philip Glass, I play anything. And then we just came up with a game plan. Oh, okay, something's gonna go wrong, right? I don't care if the band ends, you follow Lauren, we will be together. So just to come up with a game plan. And my favorite failure was, we now have an award now for failure. So,
okay, tell.
So as you know, in the events business, we don't get a lot of setup, right? You load in and you're
10 minutes.
Yes. And they're and actually we want 25 dancers over here instead of there, and that kind of thing. So we kind of go with the attitude of not if there's going to be an obstacle, but what will the obstacle be? Yes. And so we recently did the Golden Globes party with NBC. And so, very nervous. The president of NBC is going to be there. There's Kylie, there's Kendall, there's Zac Efron. And one of our dancers is spinning canes, and she hits the canes on the floor. Normally, because she's a belly dancer, and she does all kinds of other dance too, she dances with bamboo. Bamboo bends. These canes were not bamboo. Boom, cracks a cane, flies off into the audience where the president of NBC is. And so, and that cane was supposed to go to another dancer in the dance, right? There's 17 dancers in this performance. So I'm like, oh my God. But we had an extra cane. We already had a route in case anyone dropped a cane, lost a cane, forgot one. And so that became known as a Cane Breaker Award. So the biggest obstacle, most intimidating obstacle, now we award it to a dancer of overcoming.
Oh, nice.
So we incorporate it as part of our process.
What's the name of the award?
The Cane Breaker.
The Cane Breaker.
And they signed the cane.
Okay, I like it. And you said you Bob Bowman it. That's what you referred it to. I like that. Great example with Michael Phelps too. Good example. Now, you're in the public a lot. You do a lot of performances. Your team does a lot of performances. How do you handle your critics? Because we know they're out there, and the more successful you get, the more critics you have. How do you handle that?
I don't handle it very well personally. Just crying in my car and listening to 8 Mile by Eminem.
That counts, yes.
I'll tell you about my first bad review, though. This wasn't with the Follies, but it was in London, because the show, part of the draw of the show is that you have critics come, and then they put up your reviews the next day. And so I got my critiques back, and my boyfriend had come from LA to visit and see the show, and I was very nervous. And my critique was lukewarm. And his first words were, "Congratulations, your first bad review." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "It's your first bad review, and then you go on. You realize that it has nothing to do with your ability to make work." And my accountability buddy, Katie, who's also my Artist Way buddy, she talks about collecting your nose. People who don't like you, it's all part of the process. If you're not collecting your nose, you're probably not working enough. So just incorporating it. And we also, as a company, we post-mortem after every event. And so we evaluate ourselves. So to make critiquing with the purpose of improving ourselves as a company is one thing that we do regularly. So it takes a little bit. It's like putting ice on before you get a shot. It takes a little bit of the sting out, you know? So that's kind of how I try to deal with it.
All right.
And then make notes in my Artist Way book and cry a little more.
Don't cry. Collecting those, talking about failure. In your opinion, I'm really curious to hear your answer to this question. Mm-hmm. What are some of the defining characteristics you've observed in some of the most successful or talented dancers that you've worked with?
Oh, grit and consistency. We do one-on-ones with our dancers each year because a lot of times our dancers don't work together, And so what I have found with the dancers, with the artists who are booking most, is they are auditioning the most. So, there's some people who, and so they get cut a lot. The girl who is getting the national commercial or the national tour, she got cut from 10. So just really knowing their conversion rate and continually keeping up their practice. So the people who I found, have kind of the exciting gigs and, are booking the Met Gala with Katy Perry, they are constantly going to class, constantly improving themselves. It's not as if, I got the job, so I can just lean back. They're always leaning forward, always improving, and always adding a specialty. So, how do I differentiate myself? Okay, so I learned that. What else can I learn? Those are the people that I find to be successful and continuous. Because there have been people in my past who are exceptional performers, and they didn't make it. And there's people who weren't exceptional performers, but are, with amazing companies. And the only difference was that they kept going. That they kept showing up. Right. Again and again.
They persevered.
Grit. That book, Grit, by Angela Duckworth, which I know you read.
Yes, you do know I read. Yes. Great book. We'll get to books in a little bit, but that was an awesome book. That was one of my favorite books, I think, back in 2016. So
it's a really big. If you have grit, I think you can make it.
Yeah.
Success is inevitable.
Yes, there you go. You're preaching to the choir. Tell us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from this experience?
I've had a few dark times.
Well, pick one you feel comfortable sharing.
I think, because this is for people who are going into creative business.
Yes. Well, this is for, everyone listens, but that's the focus for
Right.
that. So yeah.
I would say, and this could maybe apply to people on both sides, when we had to fire people. Like, it was incredibly difficult. It was a tumultuous time for the company. It was very stressful for me. You develop relationships with your performers, and then certain things happen which you have to figure out, is this my ego talking? Is this what's good for the company? And the decision to make isn't clear, right? So it's not clear whether or not I need to let them go or keep them. But when I had to let some dancers go, I think the thing that was difficult was I really care about them as people. And when you're firing somebody or not renewing their contract or whatever it is, or you're saying we're not going to be working together anymore, it hurts. It hurts the person. I think a lot of times when people get fired, they're like, oh, that boss is an asshole. But, I cried. It was like, it was really hard. And I think that's the one thing that you don't think about when you're moving from creating a piece or art. You don't really think about, all of the relationships involved with it. My co-founder and I have had definite differences of opinions, and we're friends, and like, how do you deal with that, and how do you move forward, and how do I deal with this in what's best for the company, and then best for them, and it might not be best for them right now, Right. Luckily, I've maintained relationships with that, and my boyfriend definitely gave me great advice. He's obviously one of my mentors because he's had to fire quite a few people, but just how you tell them that you want to know how they're doing a year from now. And it's true. You do want them to do well. You do want them, you don't want this to be some turning backwards point. So that was definitely a rough time, and how to bring the company back together, you know?
Was there a specific instance in terms of why you had to fire people, or just kind of, was it?
Yes, there was there was some fraternization, and
said.
Yes, and so, which it's a tricky topic, and it's not easy, and really having to, I definitely, it was my fault in that I don't have an HR department. So
you are the HR department.
I am, and so I don't necessarily have the capacity to deal with like how it affects the company. And so while I wish that I was a huge company that had a department you can send it to and we can work it out, I knew I didn't have those capabilities, and so I feel that I was letting them down by not being able to do something, and it was the only thing that I could do with the resources that I had.
Yeah, we live and we learn.
Yeah.
We live and we learn.
It hurt.
Pain will go away though.
Yeah,
don't worry.
It did. And you know what? Now they're doing great. And like, have coffee. It's great.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Who was the most influential person for you growing up?
I had a hard time with this one.
Okay, you can pick two people if that helps.
Definitely my family, which I think is a given. So like my mom, my mom's a very strong person. She's the one who I thought that everyone's parents. So one thing about my mom, she rearranges our furniture like all the time. I just thought everyone did that. I thought everyone rearranged their living room furniture regularly. My mom was the one who shovels the snow, mows the lawn. She's a better shot than my dad as hunting. So, but my mom has always been kind of just do it, you can do it, So my dad is a great, if he's listening, you're not, Dad.
When he listens.
But I do think my dance teacher, Evelyn Creason, growing up was a huge, the way she choreographed, the way she ran a company, the way she always treated us like we're professionals. So she was a big inspiration.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you were 21, were you in Portland or were you in London? Where were you when you were 21 years old?
I just finished undergrad I finished undergrad at 21 and I was moving to New York.
Okay, so you're preparing to move to New York. We're going to go find 21-year-old Colette, and we're going to have a conversation with her. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
I would say think about strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would find Christine Aller, who is she has a lot of online stuff for creatives, and she has been a coach for me. But I would get a coach. I would have someone assist in me figuring out how to get on my path, and I would read more. I didn't start reading until I always read, but I didn't really read till I was older. But I would try and strategize and not waste quite so much time.
Yeah, excellent advice. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
Oh, to be able to tell the difference between like my ego and what's best practices. Because a lot of times some of the decisions I make, those gut ones, that's my ego. And to recognize that is my ego, that's not necessarily what's right. So to be able to see like, oh, is that my ego wants that job, or my ego wants that client, or my ego wants to put that dancer in her place, as opposed to like, okay, let's assess, let's step back.
How did you develop that skill? Say, for example, someone like me who might struggle with that as well. How did you develop that skill? Because it's not easy.
It's not done. It's a work in progress.
Yes.
First of all, understanding what is my ego, and kind of for me, I can feel it when it's in the pit of my stomach when I'm like, fuck that person, or envy. It's really hard with social media, and getting distracted with other people and their success, which I know a lot of people struggle with. So first of all, is it a logical feeling? Am I thinking about this logically, or is this like a physiological response? So trying to determine between the two. If it's physiological, then I need to step away. So a lot of times when you get into that heated moment, that client, I'll tell you a client story. When you get into that client moment and you're like, oh, writing the email to myself first, sleeping, and then reevaluating the email. So I have a break between it. That's very helpful. Going binary has been very helpful.
What do you mean?
So, for instance, when I've gotten into some difficult situations, you feel the need to explain and to like, but this and that, and instead saying, nope, I'm sorry, that's not what we do, and not having to go into real deep, making excuses or what have you, just like ending the conversation, and so that a person you can't continue to heighten the situation, and then kind of just not recognizing if it's a shiny thing that I'm attracted to. Oh, that's shiny. It's not really going to do anything for my career or my artistic practice. So
very wise, very wise. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence would be, I help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
So I had trouble with this one too. But so I have a quote.
Perfect.
It's longer than a sentence, but this quote has meant a lot to me for a very long time. It's by Martha Graham. It was in her book with Agnes DeMille. Okay, so here we go. There is a vitality, a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And there is only one of you in all time. This expression is unique, and if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, not how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep open and aware directly to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. No artist is pleased. There is no satisfaction whatever at any time. There is only a queer, divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than the others. Long, sorry.
No, we're going to let that breathe for a minute. Well done. What is one new habit you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
Reading every morning. Reading a nonfiction book, or typically a nonfiction book, memoir, or a business book, or something about tech or what have you in the morning for like a good 25 to 35 minutes.
Right when you wake up, before you do anything?
Before I do anything else.
Oh, you're the first person that's mentioned that. That's interesting. How has that helped you?
It kind of sets the tone for my day. It makes learning part of my daily process. I heard about it on Success Magazine.
Yeah.
And it was one thing that multimillionaires do, is a habit that they have, and it was like, that's one I can do. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of habits that people have, and I'm like, ooh, I wish. And I used to not be a morning person. And I used to hate getting up in the morning. And so now I try to get up early enough that I can read, so I'm not rushing into my day. And it's really made a difference.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm thinking to myself now, I get up in the morning, I practice my piano for 30, 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. I got to figure out how I can sneak in 20, 25 minutes of reading, because that would be great.
Start with 10 even.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then it just goes, and then now I look forward to it. My coffee, my book, my dog. It's great.
That. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about books. You like reading. Like, that's the perfect segue. Yeah. What books? We're voracious readers. We love to read. You love to read. If you're going to recommend 1, 2, or 3 books that people should stop what they're doing right now and read them right away, what books would you recommend? Besides Grit, we've talked about that.
Besides Grit, I would say The Golden Rules, 10 Steps to World-Class Excellence in Your Life and Work by Bob Bowman. That's a great book.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you're an athlete or what have you. I think that Charles Duhigg's Smarter, Better, Faster has been very interesting. I prefer to read books that are a little bit more science-based or research-based, just because it kind of, my brain wraps around it a little bit better. And then another book, Get Clients Now, which is because most of us are in the service-based industry.
Yes.
So how that book is very helpful and practical.
Cool. Now, growing up, did you watch the TV show Fame?
Yeah, I watched some of it.
Some of it?
Yeah.
Isn't it loosely based off of Alvin Ailey School?
It's based off De La Guardia.
Ah, okay.
Which is down the street from Ailey.
Right. I was wondering. I meant to ask you that before, but I said I'm going to follow up and ask that because I was wondering. So.
Did you watch that show?
I did.
Did you love it?
It was good. Saturdays at like 4 or 5 p.m. on Fox when I was growing up, black and white TV.
Yeah.
It would be on the TV, so I would watch it. Yeah, Leroy. I remember Leroy.
You know, Debbie Allen does free classes, I think, at the Wallace Annenberg.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know the woman with the cane?
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to us, now that we've kind of gone through your history from when you first started off as, part of the ballet company when you were a young pup to now you're like extremely successful, LA Follies. You're looking back on your career. What are some of the accomplishments that you've achieved that you're most proud of?
Oh, right, my defining moments.
Yeah, it can be your defining moments, yes.
I would say there's been a couple of key ones. Like the first time I got hired to choreograph for it was called Reflecting Faru, that play. My dad came, and my dad is, he's a contractor. He built the house I grew up in. And I wouldn't say contemporary art is his passion or his interest, but my parents came to support, and he was they helped me backstage. And and mind you, again, the show is half in Farsi, right? So not only is it contemporary dance and theater, but it's in another language. And my dad was like, I don't get it, but I liked it. And I'm like, there was that. And when I did my thesis in grad school, was a full-length production, and my mom and my aunt came, and I think my mom cried. And so I was kind of like, there's those moments when it feels really insurmountable. The Golden Globes was another one. That was for me, a very stressful client. They were lovely people. It was great to work with, but it's such a high stake because you're performing for performers. And so I had to soul cycle coach myself. Do you do soul?
Every once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, you know how they're like, yes, you can. You can do it. And so I had all these doubts, all these fears. They wanted some changes right beforehand, all this anxiety, and but I was like, I have to be a leader, right? I have to guide my dancers into this. And if I'm scared, how are they going to perform? So I picked quotes that I thought would go for each of them and put them next to so they each had individual ones. Put them next to their gear, and I was like, what is it that I want to hear? Because I need a little pep talk right now. And so I, channeled my inner soul cycle coach, Gina, Pixie, Molly. And I like pushed myself through it, and I pushed them through it. And then having the audience like clap and be excited about it, you know, that felt really great. It felt like we really did something special.
What was the quote that you would have picked for yourself so that you could have like stayed calm or?
Oh, I had like a mantra, yes, you can. You know, there's parts in your class when you feel like you're gonna die, and you don't know if you have the strength to get through it. And then I just heard like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Like, you're a warrior. I see the words, and I'm like, I can do the front row. I can do this.
Yes, you can.
Stay on the
and
beat.
You did this.
I did.
Tell people how they can find you online.
LAFollies.com, at LA Follies on Instagram.
And where do you spend most of your time, like social media? Instagram, Facebook, Twitter? Which one?
Instagram and Facebook, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we're just about at the end of the interview, but before we kind of sign off, I just want to say thank you very much for sitting down and chatting with us. I love your spirit, extremely intelligent. You told some great stories. I love your business too. I mean, you do a great job. You're high profile. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Yes, me too.
We're going to have fun together. We're going to travel to conferences together. So I just applaud your work. Keep it up. I really also respect the fact that you are an advocate for getting people properly paid, specifically dancers. That's important in our industry.
Thanks.
So
You
keep
too.
that going. And we let our guests sign off the show by just giving any last minute advice or words of wisdom. So as we sign off, we'll say thank you to you. We'll let you take us home.
I would just remind yourself that success is inevitable. Keep at it, right? Do it.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on, and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon on our next episode.